I'll start off with just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Claire Kozar. I'm a senior client sales executive with D2L. I'm very happy to be here and very happy to be working with University of Rhode Island. Oh, looks like somebody's used rubrics here before. So today that's going to be the main topic of our conversation. And I have my colleague here, Gideon Sears, solutions engineer.
Yeah, it's very nice to be here. Very nice to be here. Claire, I didn't know if there was something else you were going to cover, or you want me to, or Amanda, is there anything you wanted to cover, or just want me to jump in and start talking about rubrics?
Well, we've just invited D2L. Our D2L is the company that runs and sponsors Brightspace, and so they're going to teach you about rubrics. Great to
Okay.
hear it from the people who know it best.
I guess Gideon, how about I keep an eye on the chat here while you're talking about rubrics and make sure anybody's chats get brought to the forefront. It looks like, oh, okay. Looks like most folks would be new to using the rubrics tool within Brightspace. We have a small enough group that people can talk. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a small enough group where feel free to ask questions throughout. I was going to focus on course level rubrics rather than creating them at the admin level and sharing them down. So we'll take a look at some course level and then also what that evaluation process kind of looks like as well. So I am getting a little bit of internet craziness, so I'm going to turn my camera off so that just saves a little bit of resources. But let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll jump into a course, and we'll, at a high level, we'll talk about rubrics just generally speaking, like the two main types that are supported within Brightspace. And you should be seeing Brightspace at this point. We good? Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to go into a course. We'll go into this English language course. And in order to get to the rubrics tool, well, there's a couple of different places that we can do that. But let me show you probably the most common way if you're just setting up general rubrics for your course. You will go into course tools. It might be called something different. It might be called course admin on your site, but it's the place where we want to get to either all course tools or rubrics. And I'm going to go to all course tools just because that might familiarize you with that screen. So wherever you would go, whatever the name of the thing is that you would click on in order to get here, if it isn't already a navbar link in here, yeah, go ahead.
I can speak to that. So we do have the course, it's called Course Tools at the top.
Okay.
When you choose the drop-down menu, it's called Course Admin.
Okay.
And it brings them to this page.
Perfect. Perfect. So you can get to this page, and then we are going to go to rubrics. So once we get in there, we get into our rubric. This is the course level rubric administration screen. And from here, we can see the rubrics that are already imported into this course, or at least available to this course. And if we wanted to create a new one, then we can easily do that. So if we wanted to create a new one, for example, we can go in, and here we have a new rubric. And we've got a couple of different options. So here, let's do this. So we give it a name. Then we want to select what type of rubric we want. So there's a couple of there are two different types. Let me just briefly explain about each of them. So here we have a holistic. If I can continue, a holistic rubric is it kind of commonly used when creating an assignment where there's not necessarily a single correct answer or response. We're wanting to get students to think through a problem and present what they have learned in a hopefully compelling way. So we might use a holistic rubric for a discussion, like talk about. I teach sociology, so let's say that in my introduction to criminal theory course, I might want to have them discuss the pros and cons of a certain classical theory or something like that. Well, I might use a holistic because I'm just saying, did they address it? I'm just trying to get them to think deeply about it. Whereas an analytical rubric, and we'll take a look at that here in just a second, are the one that have the separate criterion. So there's multiple criteria where we can say that on this particular aspect of this, you did, here's my feedback, and so on and so forth. Some advantages of a holistic rubric, so kind of when you might want to use these, when you're wanting to focus on what the learners can do rather than what they can't do. They are incredibly easy to create due to there only being one criterion, and they're pretty consistent. I don't know if you have courses where grading is delegated sometimes to a teaching assistant or somebody like that within Brightspace, but these types of rubrics make it pretty plain for whoever's grading to have fairly consistent remarks. So some of the disadvantages: no room for specific feedback. You'll have to type that in yourself, or there's not a lot of room for specific feedback. And you just keep in mind you are only using one scale to assess the entire assignment. So what we might want to do with this, it's going to automate these levels. So we could change that if we wanted to. But here, and we can always add additional levels if we wanted to do that. So if we wanted a level 0, we can just hit that add. And then we can put any specific feedback in here that we might want, like, addressed most of the issues, but I'd like to see you go into more depth on this particular topic or something. And then it's automatically in published status, which means it does have to be in published status in order to attach it to a gradebook item or an assessment, or and these can be attached to quizzes for the written assignments or written answer questions, discussions, assignments, and then you can also attach a rubric right to a grade item if you would want to do that. So, but here we can there's various different statuses. If you're not ready to use it on an assignment, you can change it to draft mode, and then you won't see it in the list in order to add it to a particular assessment. So, I'm going to stop there. We'll get to talking about options here in just a second, but have you guys ever used a holistic rubric before? I think most commonly what people are used to are probably analytical rubrics, and we'll take a look at those here in just a second. But
I use holistic rubric sometimes for discussions. I find it for simple, basic discussions. I find it an easy option.
Yep. I would say that is most commonly where I use them, is in discussions as well. But does anybody have any questions or something that they kind of see on the screen and they're like, "What's that about?" We're gonna get into some other aspects of it, but thought I'd start with the very simple example of a holistic rubric.
So I'm thinking if it was more of a skill-based class, then I would be looking at the analytic, not the holistic. Is that?
It could be the analytic. Well, let's take a look at one. I'm actually gonna we'll close out of that and we're gonna create a new analytic one. Let me see. I think I already have one built. I just want to go into the. I think it's this course. No, but we can create a new one. That's fine. Once I go into and I create an analytic, then it's kind of what you're typically thinking about. You could have, there's lots of different ways that you could use an analytic rubric. It could be that these are individual skills, that these criterion. Let's do, maybe a concrete example. Does anybody like to watch cooking shows? I love cooking shows. So let's create a rubric actually that is about baking mac and cheese. It's one of my favorite things in the world. Everybody loves mac and cheese. So we're gonna create this rubric, and I'm gonna change these criterion to various different aspects of what we want out of if we were judging mac and cheese. So, and that's taste and flavor, texture, and then finally appearance. And this is where we can show various different aspects of kind of how this stuff works. So, Kathleen, to answer your question, this could very well be different skills. This could be, describes or, some kind of analytical aspect to this particular submission or paper. And this is another one. This is where we could, go, hey, this is, some other skill, and we're judging them or we're measuring them all on one particular rubric. So that is where, and there are no outcomes in this course, but we could have outcomes attached to these as well. I'll find a course here in just a second. I know it's one of my English courses that I already created a rubric in, and I just don't quite remember which one. But here we can set our various different levels. So in here I have it scoring on points. We can do absolutely no score, which just has the levels. So if this is just for feedback, so I use a lot of non-scored ones for, say, formative assessments or first drafts of final papers, especially when I have like a scaffolded assignment where at the end of the course is a final paper that is kind of putting all of the other papers from the course together. Sometimes I'll use some of the ones that aren't scored as a way to just provide a lot of feedback. We can do that points, and it's going to automate those. It's always going to create you at first a 12.1. This gets translated to however many points it is on the in the grade book. But I can also do like custom points if I would want to do that. So let's say that we wanted to do some custom points. Well, that allows me to weight different categories differently. So I'm going to say that I want this to be a total of 50 points. And I want this to be I want the weight distribution to be different. So I want taste and flavor to be the most important, and appearance and texture to be not weighted nearly as much. So allowing for custom points allows you to weight one particular category a little bit differently. So now what we need to do is go through, and I'm not going to do all of these, but I'll do the first one at the very least. So here we can put in our various different levels. And you can, I'm just copying and pasting these. From a rubric that I created earlier today. Just went to Chat GPT and literally asked it to create me a three criterion 4-level rubric for mac and cheese, and it like miracles, it just spit one out for me. It's wonderful for those kinds of things. So, and that's, I mean, that's a good example of how this would work. If we want to reverse the order level, so if you're used to rubrics that have where the highest end is over here, then we can certainly do that as well. So we do need to adjust our points here. So let's say that we're just going to do a 6-point reduction every time. We'll say that this is, say, 24 points. This is 18 points, and this is 12 points. And then we can do the same thing here. Oops. And the same thing here. And then if we want, we could add additional criterion if we want to do that. There is one other thing that we need to do, because if we are setting up custom points, then we need to adjust the overall score on this rubric as well. So that means that if I score at the top there, there, and there, it's going to say, okay, well, what level are we at? We also have the ability to do the, change these names. So let's change these to terms that we might be more familiar with. And we'll say that in order to achieve mastery, so this is out of a 50-point scale. Let's make that at, say, 90%. Yep, okay, so we'll do 45 there. Let's say that you have to have at least 39. We'll go 34, and we can keep that at 0. So we'll go through, I'll add this to an assignment, and then I can show you what it looks like to grade it. But any questions on anything that I've just done? I threw a lot at you in a very short amount of time. Well, let's take a look at some additional options. So we can see that there are some additional options that are available. So we have whether or not the rubric is hidden from the student. I generally make them visible because I want them to know what criteria they're going to be assessed against. But there are cases where you might want this to be hidden or hidden until they receive feedback, until you've graded it. So if there are learning outcomes attached, you get to determine if it's mapped automatically or you want to map those manually. Meaning that if your outcome scale is set at, you need to get to 80% in order to achieve mastery, and they are at proficiency, and when, as the instructor, you're scoring this, will it automatically say that a score of 83 is proficient for that particular outcome. You can also add a description. Students don't see this. This is for your benefit. So when you go to your rubrics, here we can have I can do a description of Tech Day 2024. And then, because this is at the course level, that's all you have. That program level ones, some admin functions allow for a couple more features, but so we're just going to close that, and there we have it. There is our. I guess I didn't title it. We should probably do that. So let's go back in and title it. So we'll say this is the mac and cheese rubric. And there we go. We've got our rubric. Now, in order to attach these, it's super easy. So if I go to assignments, and I could be creating a new assignment anywhere. I could be doing that in content, or I could be doing that within the assignments tool. Either one. The process is the same for attaching a rubric. So let's actually go ahead and do a new assignment. And we're going to say this is the mac and cheese. And we're going to say that, yeah, has a score of 50. And we're going to take a look at the evaluation and feedback. And right there, this is where we can add a rubric. Now from here, we can add the existing one, or if we haven't created one yet, we have the opportunity to create it right here. That's why I said that there's a couple of different ways that you can get about this. So if you haven't created the rubric yet and you're already creating the assignment or the discussion or the, or wherever it is, any place you have the ability to add a rubric, we now have the ability to create them right there as well. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and add an existing one. So there we go. Just to make this easy on myself, instead of a file submission, I'm going to make this observed in person, because we'll pretend that we're in a class learning how to make mac and cheese. And that way I don't have to submit anything. So here's where we can add some learning objectives to this as well if we wanted to, or if there are any outcomes available in the course, we can do that. But here we're going to save and close. And then I'll show you what the evaluation process looks like. So we're going to go in and we're going to view submissions. And just for giggles, I'm going to mark everything as complete so that it shows that every student has done something. And if we go to the evaluation, so this is what the grading experience would look like. If you pulled it up in Quick Eval or went through it this way, Quick Eval would be the preferred option. But we get to this rubric, and here we have the scale, and it's pulling in things from the criterion you can see. So this is all of the things that we put in when we built this. So I'm going to say, yeah, it absolutely tasted great. You can add individual feedback for all of these. I didn't add the criteria for those, but we're going to say that the texture was a little off. We'll say and again, we'll say that the appearance was lovely, and that gives me an overall score. So it's 46. So when I set that 45 minimum for mastery, it's already judged that as having mastered that. So it does automate this process based on how I filled this rubric out up here. And then when I'm ready to, I can add my overall feedback. So just a plug for these tools as well. I can record a video or some audio. I often record audio for my students and feedback because I tend to say things a lot faster than I can type them. So, so I just really like that feature. And then once we're ready to go, we can publish it or we can save it as a draft and move on to the next submission. Questions, comments? What are you thinking? Let's impersonate a student and take a look. Okay, so I'm going to go to the class list and I'm going to impersonate Faith. So let's go into grades. We could do that one. Yeah, let's just take a look at this one. So they have the opportunity, so they get their overall feedback on what their score is, and then they also have the ability to view the graded rubric. Pops it open in a new window. It shows the entire rubric, what their score was. Any individual feedback, and we'll take a look at that here in just a second, would be in between these. They get their overall score and they see their overall feedback as well. Let's take a look at that mac and cheese one to our graded rubric. And like I said, this is where we would see it shows what, the entire rubric, how they were marked, and then feedback on the individual criteria. Okay. Well, what else could I show you? I'm more than happy to show you. Maybe let's go to a course where we add outcomes to a rubric. So let's go into a course that I know has outcomes, because I wanted to make sure that at first I showed you one that didn't.
It's
Usually helps.
probably a good connection, Gideon, because I know Amanda was talking about outcomes earlier this morning in her session.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can go back and check out the video on how to build course outcomes. The feature is not fully enabled yet in our system,
Okay.
but it is up and coming. So I've been encouraging people to build the rubric to get that piece set. So attaching outcomes will be
Okay.
easier.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And then we also have a question in chat, Gideon, maybe before we go in this how-to direction. It's a strategy question. Do you have a strategy for dealing with late assignments when you have a rubric? Do you address the lateness within the rubric or within the gradebook?
Oh, it's really 6 of one, half a dozen of the other as far as the strategy is concerned. If it is something that you want them to be aware of, just at the onset, it's not I will sometimes include it in a rubric, like for a final project. Okay, for example, I teach a past, present, future. It's a seminar course, past, present, future of the war on drugs in the United States. And the final in that is a very, very lengthy paper that if they turn it in late, I won't get to spend as much time on it as needed in order to fully, give them the feedback that they need. Therefore, I have it in the rubric that I have the late submission column. They get very, very heavily deducted if they don't turn it in on time, and that's just part of the rubric, so that it is part of the overall understanding of these are the criteria. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but I like to do it in the rubric in cases where I want it to be so clear to the learner or the student that time is of the essence. You can't expect me to read a 20-page paper when you turned it in 3 days late, and I now have a day to grade it. So,
Gideon, another use case that I've used a criterion of submitting on time is the discussion board post. I will say submitted initial response and response to peers on time. Then the second section of that criteria was missed the initial, but responded to peers on time. And then it was missed everything, submitted everything late. And that's impressing upon them the idea that discussions for online classes need to be interactive and need to be in a timely manner so that their peers can do that.
absolutely. That's a great idea, and I've seen that in other places before as well, where yeah, you just deduct points along the way if they either submitted late or they have not done what they said they have not completed all the requirements. So yeah. Okay, well let's jump in real quick, and we're going to add outcomes so I can show you how that would work. We are presuming that there are already outcomes in the course. So I'm going to go to all course tools. I'm not going to go in there, but learning outcomes, this is where you would go in either to import them from a larger program or to create them within your course. But here we go to rubrics. Here we've got the mac and cheese one that I've set up. So if we go in here, let's create a new one. I've already used this one, so let's go back and we're going to create a new one. If you've already used it, then you can't. You can change some of it, but you can't change some things, like you can't add outcomes to the criterion. So we'll do a new rubric, and we'll keep it at our analytical. We've got criterion 1, 2, 3. Here let's pretend that this is. We won't worry about the actual. We'll just use some generic names so that we kind of know what we're talking about. And we'll say that this is an English course where we're teaching some writing skills, and we want to focus on these three things: the clarity of the writing, the organization of the ideas, and the actual mechanics. So this could be APA or grammar or whatever. And then we have outcomes available to the course. So here we can browse the outcomes that are available, and we'll say that this is. Demonstration of verbal skills or written skills. And we can see it attaches the outcome. If we want to add another one to this criterion, we can. But we'll go through and we'll say organization. And if I had an outcome that was, we'll say that this one means grammar. And then there we go. Anytime I assess this now, anytime I use this rubric and assess it, these outcomes will automatically be attached to it. So we can keep the overall score, and let's make sure it's in published status. Yep, we'll close that out. Now let's add this too, and we can grade to this one so you can see what this experience looks like. So real quick, I'm going to create an assignment. And I could add overall outcomes right here as well if I would want to do that, but no need. We'll just go ahead and add the rubric. And I believe it's this one. Yep, because there are outcomes attached to each of those. And I can find out what they are by hovering over them. And we're good. Oh, I do want to go back and edit that here real quick. Rubric with outcomes. Yeah, because I don't want to have to submit anything. So I'm going to just edit this real quick so that it is not a file submission, but observed in person. That way we can see what the evaluation process looks like, and then also see what student sees. So view submissions. So as the instructor, with this, you will see it works just like anything else. So here we'll do, and there we go. That's good to go. And then we get our outcomes as well. And it's mapped those to the scores that I gave them, that I gave Chinley in this case, on, or Brinley. It's mapped them based upon what I've selected. So here, and then if we want, just at the for the very last thing, I'll impersonate a student, and we can see what what Brinley sees. Oh, there's no gradebook item. That's why I didn't create a gradebook item. See, I missed that step. So just real quick, we'll go back and we'll create a gradebook item for that, just so you can see what the student sees. And we'll mate. Okay. And the student also displays this, except the student also has to hover and see what outcome was being assessed there. I will say that these will import from course to course. So if you create a rubric in one course and copy it over to another one, it'll function perfectly fine. If you've aligned outcomes to a rubric and copied those over, those outcomes either need to be copied with it, or the course needs to already have the same outcomes, or else it will strip the outcomes off of the rubric. You can still move the rubric over. It's just going to strip the outcomes off. So yes, Jen. You can attach rubrics to a gradebook item. So if it's an external learning tool and it's passing over information to a gradebook item, one of the things that you can do, let me stop impersonating, is if I'm going to grades, so I'm an instructor in this course basically, and I'm going to go to manage grades. I can create a new, we'll say it's a new grade item. And yeah, we'll say it's numeric. This is where I can add a rubric to it. So you would just create that grade item that's going to feed the information from the third-party tool, We go to select rubrics. We just select the one that we want. And there you go. Now, when I grade this, I have the opportunity to use that rubric on that external learning tool.
Thank you so much, URI folks, for coming in and joining the session. I do think there's one other wrap-up session that Amanda's hosting. If you guys wanted to jump over and see those closing remarks. Thank you. Bye-bye.